Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and today we have sitting around the table our resident newlywed, Afton.
Hi.
And our 22-year marriage veteran. He's an author, speaker, and director of marriedpeople.org, Ted Lowe.
Hey, everybody.
And today on the Married People Podcast, we're going to look at a question that I'm sure we all run into in our marriages. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, Ted, because I know you've been working with married couples on stuff like this for the past 16 years. And today's question is, what do you do with expectations in your marriage? So, Ted, I'll just throw it to you here. What do you do? We all have expectations of our spouse, whether we realize it or not sometimes, and whether or not we've communicated that to our spouse or not. We all have expectations. What do we do with those in our marriage?
Yeah, absolutely. We all bring expectations into our marriage, whether that's from how we grew up. You know, we saw what mom did this, dad did this, or husband did this, and wife did this, and we bring those things that are just so ingrained to us, we don't even think about them, into our marriage. Or we bring things that we don't want that to be. We have expectations that I don't want my marriage to be like this. This is why I married someone completely different than,
Right.
than my dad.
Yeah.
Turns out she's like my mom, but that's a whole different story. But we bring in these expectations into marriage, and so does your spouse. And so they've got a totally different script in how they see marriage work in their relationships. What were some of the things that when you guys first got married that you was like, oh, that was a little bit, I didn't know she expected that or he expected that?
Well, for me, my parents are still married. They've been married for, I think, 1 million years now. And and my dad, just completely spoils my mom. Like, I just watched that forever growing up. Like, every Sunday he goes and gets gas in her car, and it was always wherever she wanted to go to dinner. Like, even as kids, we were like, well, we go wherever mom wants to go, because that's what we do. Like, my dad always let her just kind of like make the decisions, and it was awesome. And so I think I probably brought that into my marriage, where I was like, oh, that's what someone's going to do for me because of how I'm the girl, and that's what happens. Like, I think that's just a rite of passage for the girl. But my dad was also like super handy. Like, we have a pool in our backyard, and like every day after work, he goes back there and works on the pool. I don't even know what he does. He's just always like tinkering around the pool, like skimming stuff and putting chemicals, and I don't even know. He just loved like tinkering around the house all the time.
Yeah. For us, Terry and I's families of origin, so on Terry's side, they celebrate things in a much more mild manner than my family did growing up. And so that's kind of been our interesting thing to navigate. So Terry's family is much calmer, more, I guess, go with the flow. And especially when it came to birthdays, and my family was very much like, we celebrate everything. Every birthday is a get together. Every holiday, you know, it's an all skate, that kind of a thing. And so navigating some of those expectations, and Terry's done a terrific job, but like even to this day, my family gets together for everything. And that's just something we've had to start to figure out. And Terry's a great sport, but boy, that was something that I don't think she was ready for when we got married.
Now, did you think anything about it when you first got married? We're having these get-togethers and we just go, or did you go, oh, this could be different from her?
You know, we even still have conversations about how, like, oh, you know, I'm like, oh, you guys didn't like have huge celebrations for every birthday, and it's like, no, we were just kind of like, oh, it's your birthday, happy birthday, and not in a bad way. It's just like, it was more
like, maybe
more
we'll text
casual.
You from the other room and say happy birthday.
Well, it's not like that. I'm not trying to paint that.
Sure.
But I'm just like, you know, for every birthday, every, you know, half birthday or every Memorial Day, Labor Day, everything was like everybody's at the house. You know, grandparents. You know, it's just like it was a thing.
Now, for Terry, was there ever a time where she's like, what are we doing? Didn't we just have a birthday party? Did you guys have those moments?
We still have those conversations.
Oh, yeah, this still happens.
So
5 years later?
For instance, so just this past July 30th, we just had a family get-together at my dad's house. Just because we're just all going to get together, and we had cake on July 30th. It was nobody's birthday. We had birthday cake.
That is so cute.
That is pretty stinking adorable right there.
And yeah, my sister baked a cake.
I'm going to start celebrating July 30th.
And it's just like, oh, we haven't gotten together in a while. And we had gotten together 3 weeks earlier.
And they just went, let's just go get a birthday cake.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Instead of a Publix cake, like which we usually do, my older sister was like, I'm going to bake a birthday cake this time. There was nobody's name on it, but we
Right.
just had cake.
That makes total sense.
So-
and it's super normal.
But it's like, but it was so normal in my family growing up.
Right.
But it's like, Terry's like such a good sport, and she's like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to go over there, and it's just still a funny thing to her, I think.
So it could have.
And it's funny to me now too.
Yeah, you're going, oh, I guess that is. Isn't that kind of weird? You bring those family traditions in there, and your spouse holds up a mirror to it, going, "This is a smidgen odd." You go, oh, I think you're right. This is a smidgen odd.
Right. It's like, Terry, your family doesn't just throw random parties for nobody.
Do a birthday cake. Oh no, I love this. You know what?
Her family's much more normal than mine is. So many ways, but we'll get to those in other episodes.
Yeah, well, it was funny. Nancy came in seeing money one way, and I saw it another one. Like she came in, her dad was a football coach, mom stayed at home, and so if she wanted any extra spending money, she had to make it. And I kind of grew up in a really bizarre world with money. It's like sometimes my dad would be frustrated about us spending it, and other times he would just hand it over. And so I had a really, sporadic, odd relationship with money. And so when we got together, I was kind of sporadic with my spending. She's like, whoop, 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 whoop. Time out. And so I'm like, God, all she does is stress out about this. We need to have some fun with this. Come on, we could be dead tomorrow. Let's spend, and so we brought that definitely in, and that was a stressor from the very beginning. And I could see her like when making purchases, her body would physically just like, you're freaking me out right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you're freaking me out because I can't leave this thing in the store
Yeah.
because it's picking awesome.
Yeah. It needs to be in our home.
Yes, we'd enjoy it so much more if we owned it.
Even with Hudson's family, I feel like when I started spending more time with them, they have like a very formal air to them just as a family. Like they're very just like polite, and here's what time dinner is, and let's meet, and like we'll have dinner and we'll go our separate ways, and we'll have a polite conversation. And my family is like, there are no boundaries, like zero boundaries. It's like, come to the house, who knows when we'll eat, like it's just all informal, like who cares. And that was kind of a challenge when we got married, because it's like, wait, do you guys, like, why are you guys acting like you've never met before? Aren't you family? Like, I had such a weird time adjusting to it.
That's fine. Have you met each other?
Yeah. Have you guys met? That's your mom. You could just, like, she still will say, like, I know people do that, but she'll still, like, when she calls, like, hey, Hudson, it's mom, when she calls them. And I'm like, does she think you don't know the sound of her voice? It's kind of off topic, but.
No, you're
No,
good.
it's not.
I don't think it is, because I know that we're talking about expectations in our marriage, and we'll get to that. But our extended families come with us, right? They're
Yeah.
part of that, and the expectations that we grew up with, like in my situation or in Hudson's situation, the expectations we grew up with, we bring into our marriage. And so, Ted, that's why I want to dive in just a little bit deeper. So, what's the danger of carrying all these expectations from our childhood, from our extended families, or maybe we just have these expectations?
Yeah, I mean, we're all laughing about this now, right?
Yeah,
Like, this
right.
is funny, and we're all sitting around the table, and, oh, this is good times. But when we're first starting off, and even deep into marriage, after years and years, these expectations, they're misaligned. Something's not settled right, and we feel so right about it, too. We feel like this is the way it is. I mean, you've been on a mission trip or whatever. There's some ingrained cultural things that you do that they just don't feel flexible whatsoever. And so we bring a lot of those cemented in expectations into marriage, and we see our spouse doing something that's not the same, and it doesn't feel right. Sometimes we're super aware of what that is, and sometimes we're like, something's wrong. And so a lot of people get married, especially at first, and they go, God, we don't have this magical feeling anymore. What's happening? And I think a lot of that has to do with expectations. And there's several different types of these. We bring in like undefined expectations. It's more of a feeling that you act this way at a birthday party. It's more of a feeling. We kind of feeling it.
Do some of those come from mainly like growing up and that kind of thing, like the undefined ones?
Yeah, I think it's just things that are kind of in us,
Yeah.
When we grew up in the South and we moved to the West Coast for a while, and so there's just difference. Southerners have some things, or at least small town Southerners like myself, and there were some things there, that you don't confront things at all.
And what kind of freaks me out about that is just like, what am I bringing into my marriage that I don't even know?
Like I'm not even aware of?
Like I'm really not aware. And for some reason I'm dissatisfied, or I get frustrated, or I'm irritated for a couple seconds, and I don't even really know why.
Right, exactly. And so there's these things that they are undefined, or we don't again, we don't even question them because they're so ingrained in us. And then we bring, I think, unrealistic expectations because and this comes from such a good place. We want our marriages to be great. And that's the thing I love about millennials. When Pew Research came out, and I've probably said this in every episode, but they came out and said what millennials want most is to be great parents and to have a successful marriage. And I love that. So you come in with this, sometimes it's great expectations. I want it to be better. But sometimes it's kind of unrealistic or what it's going to do.
And I'll poke on that. And I know it's great. Like there are some really great, expectations that we have but I think sometimes, especially as millennials, where some of those unrealistic expectations come from is social media. We see so much on social media and we kind of pull that down into our own marriages and project those unrealistic expectations on our spouses, that kind of a thing.
Great. I call it Facebook face. Everybody puts on their Facebook face and you're trying to live up to, what you don't know about someone else with what you do know about yourself. And so that's a greatness. But, again, with millennials, even now, like I'll see people my age taking great vacations and doing all these different, hey, we're going to go see every baseball park, in the country. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know if we're going to go to a baseball game this year. And
Right.
You do. And so you bring and they're unrealistic expectations. I know, like, sexually, there's some things people bring in to what this is going to be like. She's going to wear this every night, or or he's going to be super.
I'm like cringing a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, I've had so much surprise that I decided to wear like muumuus to bed every night. Basically, I'm not even joking.
Right. Well, you go, oh, I thought this, or he's going to be Captain Romantic, and so we bring in all those expectations, so many different expectations, how I'm going to be treated, what our sex life is, finances, all that. There's also unspoken expectations. There's some things that they don't know that you're expecting that because you never told them. And maybe you don't even know what they are, but sometimes there's expectations and they just don't even know there's there. And then there's friction. Somebody shows up 20 minutes late because that's what he's, being on time was 20 minutes late in his family. So he shows up 20 minutes late and she's so frustrated and he doesn't know why she's frustrated. Well, she wants to be on time because her family was on time. There's unspoken expectations. There's unrealized expectations. I've had this expectation of you, but you're not fulfilling it. And I need for you to fulfill it. This is unrealized in my life, and for my marriage to be complete, for me to feel complete as a spouse, you need to meet these. And then I think there's, again, so many categories of this, but the final one I would think about is just unaware expectations, just on both sides. We don't even know what we're expecting at times, but there's something there.
But when it's not met, we get frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's when marriage people make it so complicated because it feels so complicated. We're not sure what we're feeling. We're not sure what we are expecting. And the thing that makes this the reason this is so important is because misaligned expectations can lead to conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why is this thing, expectations, how do they fit in marriage? Why are they so important? It's because they can lead to a whole lot of conflict. So you got all this unspoken things, some things are spoken, we come ingrained with all this different stuff, and then we're in the middle of this conflict. We're not even really sure why. Like, who's the bad guy here? Who's the good guy here? Like, what do we do with all this? And people live in their confusion, and they live in their disappointment, and they live in their frustration, wondering what in the world are we going to do, and how did we end up here?
And I would even say not all expectations are negative. Like it's not a negative thing to, want your spouse to, fill up your car on Sunday or take out the trash or, be there for them when you need them to be. I don't think all of our expectations in marriage are negative. So
For sure.
I guess part of my question is like, what does that mean then? Like if we have these expectations and they're not, having the expectation itself is not a bad thing.
Right.
What do we do with those?
Right. And I think that's where we want to shift the conversation now is there's a different way. These desires you have, these expectations you have, they could be great for your marriage. When you're talking about, having a lot of family get-togethers and things like that, and she's not used to it, but those can be great for a family. That could be something fantastic for a family. Your dad, Afton, treating your mom so well, that's great for marriage. Those aren't bad things, but I think the shift becomes, shifting from expectations to desires.
Okay.
How do you shift from expectations to desires that can lead to connection? So it's a totally different thing to desire something and to expect something. It's it's an issue of posture, how you're speaking to your spouse, what you're, for instance, expectations are a demand. They come with, I expect this to happen because this is the way it goes. This is the way it worked in my house. And you might not think of that in stronger terms, but for you, this is just how this works. And it's, there's no question there. There's no arguing with it. It is what it is. A desire is a request. It's two everything. Expectations come without any gratitude. I think you've said many times that how kind and generous and serving that Hudson is for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he is, and so
annoyingly so.
Annoyingly so. He's
annoyingly a good
He's
husband.
just so much better than me, and it's so annoying.
He's like who we all look up to. Right? He is.
So basically, what you're saying is to make you feel better, Hudson needs to be a little less good of a husband.
Right, right. Then we could be like a little bit more on neutral territory.
No, that wouldn't be a good thing. I have this feeling, Afton. But expectations come without gratitude. It comes with, this is the way it's supposed to be, where a desire comes with gratitude. Gosh, I really would love it if Hudson, treated me like, my dad treated my mom. Mm-hmm. And so it's this things of, how do we shift these things? Or these aren't bad things to desire, but it's this whole idea of let's think about what we're expecting of them. Is it fair? Is it clear? Do they know it? Is this something that we need in our marriage? Is it something positive? And then our conversation's different.
And you know what else? I feel like for me, I don't know if this is the way it is for you guys, but for me, I feel like things that Hudson did for the first 3 months of our marriage, I appreciated a lot because I was doing it by myself before. So I'm like, oh man, you took out the trash. I really appreciate that. Gosh, I didn't have to do that. That was so awesome. And then a year and a half later, it became an expectation. Before, I was surprised, I was pleasantly surprised by the help and the, making the coffee, doing all the stuff. And then it became an expectation because it was a pattern for so long, and then you don't notice it anymore to appreciate it. It just it's the way our house functions.
That is such a great example, and I bet everybody listening, you that are listening right now, you're thinking, "Oh, I think I do that in this area." It does. You're exactly right, Afton. Your patterns lead to expectations. That's just how we roll at our house. Mm-hmm. It's good.
So basically, Ted, what I hear you saying is what we need to do with our expectations in our marriage, which is what our whole topic is here today, is we need to shift those expectations to desires. We need to take those, good or bad, spoken or unspoken expectations and turn those into communicated desires with our spouse.
Yeah, and people go, how do I shift from an expectation to a desire? I think it bases on gratitude, and it bases on gratitude and clarity. What are they doing that you're very thankful that they're doing? Mm-hmm. Not just because you expect them to do it with the trash, Afton, perfect example, but also it comes with clarity. How do we find out what these things are? This is where we can be really honest with each other. If you come to your spouse with, I expect you to do this, mm-hmm. other than the posture of, hey, I really wish we could think about this, mm-hmm. whether that's in the area of sex, whether that's in the area of when time you're getting home, when it's chores around the house, that we start being really clear with each other, that we start defining our expectations, or we define our desires, and let's make unrealistic expectations more realistic desires, and if there's unspoken expectations, then let's speak them as desires instead of demands. And then when things are unrealized and it's super important to you, to say, hey, this is what's important to me. These are some things there. And then just things we're unaware of. It's a self-inventory going, what am I doing? And gratitude and clarity really help you to shift that mindset.
So gratitude and clarity, those are great, but you just laid out a bunch of different scenarios where we might need to shift our expectations, the unrealized, maybe whatever. Can you boil that down into our one simple thing for this week? Just like the one thing that we can really grab a hold of and begin to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one thing for this week is really, really simple, but I think it could be really, really powerful, is what is one great thing in your life that your spouse does for you that you would hate to do yourself? What is that thing, but you just kind of expect them to do it? If you pause and you start thinking about all their responsibilities, and some of you are going, oh, I do everything. Well, not everything. Let's think for just a minute. What is that? And then simply thank them for it. When you start going through, oh, they do this and they do this, but when you hit that one, they do this, and I would really hate to do that.
Yeah.
Like I really appreciate that.
It's almost like going back to what Afton was saying, like you're still, less than 2 years in your marriage. You can remember the things that you used to be super grateful for when you first
Yeah.
got married that have now slipped into expectations.
Yeah.
And I'm going on 5 years, and I'm trying to reach back and think, what were those things that first year?
You were
that-
like pleasantly surprised.
Right.
by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was, I'm just throwing that out there as
Yeah.
a great filter. Like, hey, what are those things that might help you figure out what those things are? What are those things you thanked your spouse for way back when, but now you just expect them?
Right. You know who this, and not to crash us down to Bummer land here, but you know who really gets this is people that are widowed. Like when they start seeing what they're missing, they start seeing, what he used to do that she didn't even know he did it. I didn't know you used to do that. I didn't know that you're keeping up with the house. Like we have some dear friends of ours, and he's, he passed away, and there were all these things that he did for her, and now she doesn't even know how to do it because he served her in that way. And so they get that. And the thing, when you talk to people who have lost their spouse, they would give anything for another day with messy clothes on the floor, anything. They would do anything to have them back. And so I think what we can do, those of us who are so blessed and fortunate to have somebody in our life that we love and we're connected with all the time, is start really, don't wait till then. Look around now, because chances are they're doing some pretty great things for you. Let's go back to our one simple thing, which is ask the question, what is one great thing in your life that your spouse does for you that you would hate to do for yourself, but you just kind of expect them to do it? Like, what is that thing? And simply thank them for it. What is that thing, Afton? That, he does it. You're so glad that you don't have to do it, but you don't even think about it anymore because it's become a pattern.
Take out the trash 100% every time. I think taking out the trash is so disgusting. It is very disgusting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to touch the trash itself, and that is very disgusting.
Okay. And so we talk about everybody, us is different. Every marriage is different. For you,
And I really
Trash.
honestly hate saying that because it does sound so stereotypical. Like, of course, the man's taking out the trash, but it is very disgusting.
Afton, if there's anything you and Hudson are, you guys are definitely not stereotypical. I'll just put that out
That's
there.
true.
You're
That's
safe.
true.
You're safe.
That's true.
so did your dad take out the trash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But actually, you know what else, too, is I think when Hudson came home with me for the first time, and like as he's come home and like been around my family more often, I feel like he's actually noticed more of what my expectations are that I couldn't verbalize.
Oh, that's powerful.
Because he's like, oh, I just saw how you interacted with your dad or how your parents talked to each other in the car. That's why you are the way you are, or why
wow.
you think it's fine to whatever, or what, So I think it's been really funny, but I do think for Hudson, words of affirmation are definitely his like love language. So I think I'm just gonna like write down, like I buy like all those little thank you notes whenever I find them. So I'll probably write him a thank you note this week for taking out the trash.
We talk about how do you move from expectations to desires, and it's clarity. And so he got great clarity sitting around going, oh, I get it. That's powerful.
Yeah. For me, the one thing that Terry does that I would just hate to do myself, and now I expect her to do it, is keep our social calendar, keep my social calendar. So basically, I
So that you don't turn into a hermit.
Right. Yeah. Basically, if I didn't have Terry, I would probably never leave the house. I'd come out on Triple Coupon Tuesday, and that's
Yeah.
about it. Whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so she does such a great job of making sure that we stay engaged with our friends, with our small group, with our families. Like my family often just reaches out to Terry to help calendar our social events and family events because
And they say, please bring CJ.
and I've honestly just kind of grown to expect that she handles that. And we have a calendar in our room, and she just puts stuff on it. Says, hey, this is what's coming up. Just, and she's so great at it. And I just hate trying to plan out my social life and calendaring and all of that kind of a thing because, I am an introvert. And so that is something I probably need to start doing a much better job of, not just expecting that, but realizing that she doesn't have to do that, and then thank her for that.
That's great.
Especially when it comes to my family. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm managing both sides of the family. No,
So
that's
she does all of your calendaring?
Well, I mean, she's not like my secretary or something.
Right.
But
Right.
So, but she just calendars everything for us and keeps us on track.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, Ted, what is it for you?
She does so many, many things. She is for sure our organized, linear, accountant thinking person of the two of us. So she does a lot. I think probably I need to thank her more for handling the finances in terms of bills and when those get paid and direct withdrawals and all those different things. Like she lives in that. Kind of our deal has been you handle that and I won't spend. That's kind of the deal, and I'll try to make money and then not spend it.
Yeah.
And so I think we live where she feels the pressure of that, and I think she gets put in the parental role sometimes. Can we buy this? Can we do this? Can we go there? And that's not fair. So I think I do need to thank her for it verbally, but I think I need, one of the things I felt really convicted about lately is understanding our finances more. So she doesn't feel that.
Because that's a lot. That's a big task.
It's a lot. We've got 3 kids. We've, college is coming up, and, we like to do fun things with our kids. We like to do fun things, the two of us. And so I need to be more involved with that. And I am first to admit that I'm not doing a great job with that. But I'm going to try. This podcast is really helping me.
And I just appreciate that she does it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, guys, that was a great conversation. Ted, thank you so much for leading Afton and I through this conversation and helping us understand that expectations can lead to conflict in our marriage, but we can shift our expectations into desires, and that is an awesome thing. So thank you for joining us for the Married People podcast. We hope that today's episode helped you realize that marriage is a little easier than you think. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the Married People podcast on iTunes and leave us a review there or wherever you're listening to your podcasts, because your reviews help us make this podcast better and get these conversations in front of more people who need to hear them. And finally, for more great resources to make your marriage better, check out Ted's book. He's got an awesome book out. It's called Your Best Us, and you can find it on Amazon. And then visit our website, marriedpeople.org. There's just a ton of great content there for you as well. And then join us for next week's episode. Until then, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted.
And thank you for listening.